Hi, this is Chris Hoy. Welcome to Create with Chris, and today I'm going to show you how to create the Hugs and Kisses tag. We are starting with the tag shape, and I am using white chalky gesso to apply a really nice base coat. I love the white chalky gesso. It applies smoothly and evenly, makes a great coverage, especially with white, which sometimes can be a little tricky to cover. So I put a coat on using a soft oval wash, going to give it a quick dry with my Ranger heat tool, and because it is white, it definitely will need a second coat. Two thin coats is always better than one thick heavy coat. You just have a nice smooth surface that way. If you notice, sometimes it's hard to paint something that slides around. I use my stylus to stick in the hole to keep it from moving while I paint it. You could also use a toothpick, a pencil, anything to keep it in place will work. Now the stencil I'm using is the popular Ray Dunn inspired words available at Covert Distributing. It didn't have exactly what I wanted it to say, but it has all these wonderful words on it. So I decided to pick my own words. I used the hugs and placed the stencil, secured it with painter's tape to make sure it was not going to move around. I loaded my spectacular stencil brush with lamp black paint to make sure that it doesn't get too thick and heavy. I do wipe it off on a paper towel just to make sure that the paint won't run under the stencil. Just to stay on top of things, I did wipe my stencil clean with a baby wipe. That will just save you a lot of grief later when you get ready to clean up and your stencils have dried with paint on them. Using the same brush, I did not reload it. It does not take much paint. You want to apply the paint very softly, not with a heavy hand. And again, you don't need much paint. I've not reloaded my brush since I first stenciled, and before I even first stenciled, I wiped it on a paper towel. At this point, it's getting just a little bit dry, so I'm going to reload it, and oops, I forgot to wipe it off, and it's too thick. So I wiped it off on the paper towel and applied the stenciling onto the kisses. Perfect edges, nice, clean, and crisp. The secret is a light touch, a soft brush. My spectacular stencil brushes are just perfect. They'll make a great stenciler out of anyone, and just a small amount of paint. And just like that, we have a really nice, clean stencil design. I wanted to put a couple little hearts on it. I grabbed another stencil. Any heart stencil would work. You can put 1, 2, 3, whatever stencils on there. Kind of positioned it so that I was careful. I don't want to over stencil, and I used the painter's tape to kind of block off that below row of hearts. And then in addition, it will also keep the stencil in place while I stencil to make sure that it doesn't slip around and create messy edges. And apply a nice soft coat of paint on that, and that's pretty much it. Now if you want, you can lightly sand the edges to get a little more distressed look. I decided at this point to put the hanger on it. I'm using the hemp twine instead of jute twine. It's just a little bit more solid and sturdy. I did loop it through, and then I tie a knot at the top, and what that does, it's just going to hold it in place so that it doesn't loosen up. Earlier I painted some beads, and to paint the beads, to keep that easy, I just put a few of them on a toothpick and painted them that way and let them dry instead of trying to hold each one individually. Now if you are using jute twine instead of the hemp twine, you might want to put a piece of tape around the loose ends. It just makes it a lot easier to thread through the beads. And you can put on any combination color beads. I did every other color white and a color and white. You can pick and choose. You can use all the same colors. You know that you can just really add a lot of different effects by changing the color of the beads. once I put this white bead on, I decided I didn't want to add any more, so I stopped there. Now, to make sure those beads aren't going to slip around, I am going to tie a knot at the end of the string of beads, and that's just going to secure those as well. Now, I do want to put a little tassel on it. The only thing with the hemp twine as opposed to jute twine, it has a little more life to it, so you kind of have to work with it a little bit more to get it to do what you want it to do. Jute's a little more floppy and easier to work with. I wrapped it around my fingers probably about 6 times, and then I'm going to tie that loop onto the end using the ends of the string. And this is where you need another hand, but kind of work with it, and then once you get it pretty much where you want it, you can let it go and tie it real quick. And then I wanted to tie the knot in the back side. It kind of flipped around a little bit, but that's what I'm trying to do. Get it to lay back so that the knot won't show from the front side. Tie that knot in there, and then I'm going to pull all of the ends up toward the top. Cut another piece of the hemp. I'm going to wrap it around just to keep that tassel nice and tight. Gives it a great look. I wrapped it around 2 or 3 times and then tied it in the back. After I get that tied on there, just trim the ends up and snip it, and it's perfect just like that. Now, super easy. I think it turned out just absolutely great. I love it. I hope you do too. Now, this is another one that I created using different colored beads and different words, so you can see how many different ways you can do this. So thank you for joining me. I hope you had a great time. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.